Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show. The Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts is proudly sponsored by the Global Wellness HQ community. It's an online membership group where we meet, we share ideas, we share insights, and we all work together and help one another discover our own personal wellness journeys. If you'd like to join us, you can easily click the link below or scan the QR code, and we love hearing your stories, so we hope to see you in the community. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm really excited to have Bill Scalzitti with me. And Bill is the coach for romance. So, Bill, why don't we just jump right in and tell me what that means to you? Why are you the coach for romance?
Well, it started a long time ago, but I had a marriage that failed at a young age. And I said, how does something that starts out so joyously crash and burn in the rubble of heartbreak and disaster? And I wanted to find the answer to that question. And I just started interviewing people in New York City and realized that single people, as much as they want to be in a relationship, never spend any time really thinking it through. And we were never taught anything about relationships. So consequently, we get involved in things strictly by chance. And once in a while, it works out. But statistically, 1 out of every 2 marriages fails. So that's not a good batting average. And it caused me to get on a quest for this, and it's become a life's work. I spent 25 years researching the subject, interviewing people, talking to people, dating people, getting involved with different organizations to learn as much as I could about single people.
I love that. And I think that's a fascinating thing in my world. Relationships are so essential to all that we do. And yet, really, truly, most of us learn what we learn by accident. There's no nuances, there's no guidance. It's usually, we learn for better or worse from our parents and the relationships around us. So let's talk about your book that you wrote, and then we'll talk about the music side of it. Um, so I understand that you've distilled all of your wisdom into a book and a coaching program. What kind of things are people looking for when they come to you when they join your program?
Well, most of the people that I meet that start the program are people who are fed up, upset, disgusted with what's going on in the singles world. They are tired of online dating because they say it doesn't work. They just keep meeting the wrong types of people. There are no good people on online dating, and on and on and on with all the things people can say about online dating. And, I tell them online dating is a wonderful tool if you know how to use it. And if you know yourself, you have to know yourself. That's the biggest thing. Most people don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. They certainly don't know what they're truly looking for in a person that's going to make them happy. And they, just don't know how they choose to live the rest of their life. And this is all what the program is about. It takes them through all the different steps. The audio book that I created, it was a pathway, and we go section by section through the audio book. And we use music as a dual learning modality.
Excellent. So you've turned that into both the audiobook and the musical program. So what can somebody expect in that experience? Is it self-guided, or are you there guiding them, or how does that
Well,
look
there are
in the
basically two ways. I have people who just buy my audiobook and try to do it themselves, or I have people who want one-on-one coaching, and that includes the audiobook. And the audiobook, as I say, is broken down into sections. The first section is all about the person taking the program. Because if we can't get them together, if they don't know who they are, then we're going nowhere. And then we build their ideal type of person that they're truly looking for. Because if you ask single people, what are you looking for? Most times you get an answer like, I want someone warm, nice, and friendly. And I say, if that's all you're looking for, get a dog. They're warm, friendly.
Well, and I think also a lot of people are more focused on what they don't want, which again, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but my experience is when you focus on what you don't want, you tend to get more of that. Is that fair?
Well, a lot of the program is all about attitude. We use a number of tools because you're absolutely right. We use science of deliberate creation. I use conscious language, power of positive thinking. We use a number of different Feng Shui, different things that help program the mind so that what they're putting out in the universe is what they're going to get back. Because as you said, when people keep saying there's no good people on online dating, that's exactly what they keep meeting.
Fair enough. And I think then that reinforces them. Now, your tagline is you're not a matchmaker, you're a dream weaver. Tell me what that means to you, and then I have a couple of other tangent questions I want to go on.
Well, when most people hear what I do, immediately they think I'm a matchmaker. And I tell them I don't do that. What I do is work with what's going on in the person's mind that's been keeping them from finding and having the relationship they desire. Because it is all about they have to know themselves, they have to know what they're looking for, they have to understand the opposite sex. Men and women are totally different. And if we don't understand the opposite sex, communication becomes a real major problem.
Excellent. And I think that's one of the things I see a lot is people assume that, we're all alike and they don't recognize the nuances. Now, one of the questions I want to ask, I love asking big questions. But given that you've spent 25 years studying, researching, interviewing, in your experience, what would you say is the biggest mistake that single people make?
Well, the biggest mistake, as I mentioned earlier, is they spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do their love life. They don't think it through. And a lot of times we get into relationships and we notice things we don't like about the person and we think we can change them. People don't change. And you can't change someone. So you can spend years in a relationship unhappy trying to change someone. And it really comes down to that we're just creatures who look at people and we're attracted by what we see, and that's all we care about.
Excellent. And I think that's really, I've had this conversation with other people, you know, they're surprised when I ask them, and this applies to networking as well. I ask them who they'd like to meet, and what did you say? I think warm, friendly, and cuddly or something
Warm,
like
nice, and friendly.
warm, nice, and friendly. Um, they're not really clear on who they want to meet, and I use this in business all the time. But if you don't know who you want to meet, how do you know when you've met the right person?
True.
And worse, how do you know when you've met the wrong person?
True again.
That's good. So what were your big aha moments? And I'm guessing there's been many, but um, how did you start to pull all of these pieces together? What was the moment where you went, "Oh my God, people," like, did you go into this thinking I'm going to create a business, or did you go into this thinking at some point, you were curious, you wanted to help yourself, and then at some point you went, "Oh my God, there's a business here."
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I went into this because I'm just an incurable romantic, and I couldn't understand why my first marriage broke up so badly. And I said, I just want to find out so I don't do it again. And I just figured the best way to do it is to learn from others. And and as I kept doing it, then I said, wow, I said, there may be something here to help people. And that was my major motivation was, wow, I can help a lot of people.
I love it, and we're going to go down that path in a second, but I think it's fascinating how you, as an individual, you went off on this journey and you found all these resources and you distilled it. It's amazing. Like you said, people put more thought into planning a trip, or do I buy this pair of shoes or that pair of shoes, than thinking about, what does a good relationship look like. And I think now, we live in a very, very complicated world, and this is not a sense of judgment by any stretch, but 30 years ago, gender was binary. You had male or female. And now we live in a world where there's, I read somewhere there's 72 different gender assignment categories. Um, I can't imagine dating in this modern world.
Well, yeah, there are some complications, but I think that probably sorts itself out easier than we think. Because when we first meet someone, people are usually who they are. And you kind of know the gender you're looking for.
And I think that there's a good clarity in that. What are you looking for? And again, we have blended families. Gender's not the only confusing factor. Before we started recording, you were talking about, blended families and the likelihood of success if one parent has multiple kids that are, teenagers, and the other one has multiple kids that are younger. Those things can become very complicated very quickly as well.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of external factors that can ruin a relationship, even if the two people in it are enjoying it. There are other factors that can come in and destroy it. And that's what people need to think about. That's one of the things we talk about are different types of life situations and what can you accept and not accept. Because one person may say no to a situation when someone else would say, it doesn't matter to me, I'm fine with it. So, that's all part of if people please themselves, stop trying to please other people and please themselves with the selection they make and the partner they have, everybody's going to be happy.
Well, and I'm going to step out on a limb here and just say that, if you don't know yourself, how do you pick a mate? How do you pick a
True.
partner?
Well, again, people do it based on, how do I say this? The false ideas that have been put in their head.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, Hollywood, has set up a thing that said men have to look like this, women have to look like this. And if we don't look like the movie stars, we think we're not perfect.
Yeah. And if we don't act like the movie stars, there's more complications, right?
Yeah, well, everybody expects to walk down the street and the fairy dust falls down from the sky on top of somebody and you fall in love.
It's and it's interesting because I think Hollywood is a distorted mirror of society. I think that there's so many distortions there. It's hard to separate well, this is what the movies say versus this is what life says.
Mhm.
Um, Now, what are some of the mental patterns or attitudes that you're fixing, helping people resolve before they even start looking for a mate? So let's talk a little bit about how you see relationships building, and I'll talk about that in a networking context as well. But what are you seeing people needing to get over or move past before they can start to successfully make those connections?
The biggest, first and foremost, is you must love and respect yourself. Too many people, when they come to me, I find that they don't truly love and respect themselves. And we work on that because when you love and respect yourself, other people can love and respect you. And when you know who you are, then other people can know who you are. So that is really the cornerstone. That's the building block, the foundation. When that's in place, then you can build a beautiful world for yourself. But without that, if you can't love yourself, if you can't respect yourself, don't date.
You heard that from Bill. I second that, by the way. I think that that's such simple advice, yet I feel like that's the one people skip over, and I see that, whether it's friendships, whether it's relationships, whether it's business, the idea, and I have this theory that, our society, we're addicted to more. We see somebody's feed on Facebook and we want more than what they have. We look at their relationship, we want more, and yet nobody's willing to do the tiny little bit of inner work to build that foundation of here's who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's fair to say that any house built on a foundation that isn't solid, whether it's, intimate relationships, whether it's friendships, work relationships, it's going to crumble sooner rather than later because you haven't put in that inner work to say, here's who I am.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a fun conversation. And for the audience listening, Bill and I met through a networking group. Networking groups are all about relationships. I mean, the good ones, anyways. Um, and that's the thing. I see people networking, and they're not really clear on who they want to be or who they are. It's really hard to succeed at networking if you haven't done that mental work. So I'm going to mirror Bill's comment and say if you haven't done that inner work, you shouldn't be dating, but you also shouldn't be networking. Is that fair, Bill?
Well, in a way, yes, exactly.
Excellent. Well, let's talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, and let's talk about exactly what your coaching program looks like, because I do see, your comment that you're not a matchmaker, you're a dream weaver. What I'm hearing in that is that the people who work with you, they need to be prepared to roll up their sleeves and do some work. Is that a good assessment?
Absolutely. I mean, I can provide the guidance. They've got to do the work. And if they don't want to do the work, then they're not going to succeed. And it's that way with anything you do.
Excellent. Now, I'm gonna again, I haven't been in the dating world in a very long time, and I'm just gonna tell you this, Bill. I met my wife through networking 20 years ago. We've been married since, and most of the people who said, "Oh, it'll never last," they've long since divorced, and they come to us for advice. I don't pretend to understand how relationships work. I'm just really, we work at our relationship and we always prioritize it. Let's talk a little bit about dating in this modern world. I can't even fathom, the number of apps that are out there. So, what are some of the opportunities that you're seeing for people who are looking to find someone special in their lives today?
Well, I mean, there's online dating, if used properly, can be a wonderful way to meet people. I always equate it to the little grocery store versus a giant supermarket. You know, a little grocery store might have one or two brands of coffee on the shelf, where a giant supermarket might have 50. The problem is, if you don't know coffee, you're going to have a problem figuring out which one of the 50 to buy. And it's that way with online dating. The thing that drives me absolutely, utterly crazy with online dating is all the texting that goes on. I tell my clients, please, no texting with people that you meet online. You can text them to say, hello, how are you? But I want you to set up a Zoom date.
Ah.
Okay? Get on Zoom so that you can actually, and I prefer Zoom to FaceTime. But you get on Zoom, you get a chance to see who the person is. You get a little bit feel for their personality. We always hear the stories that, oh, people lie about their photos. They put up photos that are 20 years younger. Then you go to meet them in a coffee shop and you can't find them. And then someone says, oh, are you so-and-so? And then, yeah, I'm here. And then they look at each other and say, oh my God, you don't look anything like what you're supposed to look like. When you do a Zoom thing, you haven't left your house. You get on Zoom, you get a look at the person, and now you say, oh, wow, you do look like your photo. Wow, I like your personality. The only thing you can't tell from Zoom is how tall someone is. Okay, but you can get a feel for the person. Then you might be able to say, let's meet for coffee. And if a person will not do a Zoom call, what do you think that's telling you? Okay, that they got something to hide.
Yeah.
Okay. Also, another thing that people tend to just, it sometimes doesn't make logical sense, is they'll get involved in conversations with people who live thousands of miles away from them. I mean, if you live in New York City and you meet someone who lives in Los Angeles on a dating app, what good is going to come from that? Are you ready to move there? Are they ready to move here? And even if they are, how do you get to know someone when you can't have dinner once or twice a week? We set geographic boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're living in New York City and your heart really wants to live in LA, then I tell you to move to LA first before you start looking. Because what good is meeting people who are in New York if you want to go to LA? So some of it, it's all about, that's the question about how do you choose to live the rest of your life? You have to know that.
And I think it's, those are really big questions. If people aren't asking those, literally, you're dooming yourself to failure before you even step out to play the game. Is that fair?
Well, that's why there's a lot of heartache. People say, oh, someone was talking to me, we were talking back and forth, and then they ghosted me. Well, what did you really have to share with that person?
Yeah.
I say, the person you're talking to could be a 12-year-old child, or it could be someone in state prison. You have no idea.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like the whole texting scene. I'd rather they get down to a face-to-face meeting on Zoom and go from there.
Excellent. And I think it's a good starting point to step out of the shadows and just see if this is worth having an extended or a next conversation.
And the other thing that people don't really understand is how to date. And, the only reason for date number one is to ever see if there's going to be a date number two, and so on. Because if you know what you're looking for, what's on your imperative list, your important list, and your deal breaker list, That's what you're looking for. And if you find things on your deal breaker list, it's over. Goodbye.
There doesn't need to be a second date, right?
Right. And I always tell my clients, don't act like the FBI. I mean, you're not going to put a flashlight in their face and start questioning them. But in conversation, you find out things that are very important to you because you have to respect your own time.
I love it. So what kind of things would you as the coach, the expert in this, what kind of things would you recommend people are talking about on that first date? I
Well,
don't want to create a checklist, but I feel like there's probably a few filter questions that are your go-to in your back pocket.
well, I mean, just think about it. If you meet anyone, whether it's in business, whether it's whatever, you usually ask questions, where'd you grow up? How, you ask about their life. You want to know something about the person that you're sitting there with. So you said, where'd you grow up? A person, you may be in New York City now, but the person may have grown up in Florida. You want to know a little about their lives. Tell me about yourself. What do you do for a living? All this kind of stuff. You start to get a feel for who the person is. Too often, people get too excited and they're more interested sometimes in the sexual activity, and that clouds all the judgment.
Right, right.
So, before you get there, learn who you're with.
Great comment. Now, I could talk to you about this. This is fascinating, and I'm really interested in the whole building relationship side of things. How can people get to know you? How can they connect with you if they want to learn more about what you do and your Coach for Romance, Romance by Choice program?
Well, they can go to my website, which is romancebychoice.com. And there's a lot of information there. There's my contact information. There's information on the audiobook. There's also my social media there. I have a very active social media on TikTok and LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook.
Excellent. And I'll make sure to put links to that in the show notes so people can find you. My last question, Bill, is you're the expert at romance. Is there anything I should have asked you that I haven't?
No, I think we had an interesting conversation about the initial reasons. I mean, I believe that every single person out there who wants to be in a relationship is entitled to it, and they will find the person they're looking for if they're willing to put in the time and follow the procedure. And then you can be happy.
I love it. And my usual audience, they're going to love the fact that you said procedure, because that's one of my little things is everything in life is better with a process, and I'm a big fan of the saying success leaves clues. Rather than wandering around aimlessly in the wilderness, find someone like Bill who's an expert and get them to guide you to your destination. It's, I promise, less painful, and it's faster if you have a guide rather than trying to figure things out on your own. Bill, thank you for taking the time to hang out with me today.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.